Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode Analyser. So we kicked off our little mini-series episode Analyser officially last Friday. It was a little bit of a kind of explanation episode as well, so we didn't really get too much in depth with the analysis and things like that. But I just wanted to lay the ground foundations of why we're doing it, because I do think it's beneficial to always look back on your losses, especially if you want to kind of improve going forward, because it's really the only way to kind of really improve yourself is look back at the mistakes you've made, where you could have gone wrong, where you need to adjust, and that helps you kind of move forward. So hopefully that's the aim, and hopefully kind of reflects onto what you guys could maybe take away and do yourselves when you're practicing with the team and testing ideas and things like that. So I just want to say thank you as well for all the support and comments and things that we got from the episode Analyser last week, and do keep the suggestions coming, because we are like baby stages with this mini series at the minute. We're still kind of finding our feet with how we're going to portray things, how we're going to assess and showcase battles and stuff like that and walk through them. So all the suggestions that you guys have are amazing, and things that you maybe want to see added in as well that we're not currently doing, just let me know and we will work them into this mini series and make it and develop it into something really polished. So it's really beneficial for you guys going forward. But as we're going through the next few weeks, do bear with me if it's a little tedious in places, if we go off track a little bit in places, but in general it should be quite smooth going into it, and we should hit the ground running with it. But on to today's episode, because the last 2 weeks we've been playing a very fun team based around a hail core. So it's all based around Vanilluxe and Alolan Sandslash. And last Friday, after the first week of playing with the team, this is the first variation of the team, which consists of Tapu Lele, Vanilluxe, Alolan Sandslash, Alolan Muck, Gyarados and Alolan Marowak. We had such a really great week with it. It was so much fun playing the team, and I hadn't played a hail core all format all season, and I loved every match that we had last week. And I think we did identify a few areas that needed improving, but I think on a whole the team performed very well. We played well in areas. We managed to squeak results that we probably sometimes otherwise shouldn't have, and we came up against some really hard matchups like Sun, Rain was another one. So we bumped into everything we kind of wanted to bump into, and we came out kind of on the better side of that. But still, in the episode Analyser last week, we did kind of go over some changes that we wanted to make to shore up some of those weaker matchups, and I think that's a big issue with Hail in general. I think it's a very offensive core. It's very good. It's very threatening. If you don't respect it, it will just rip a hole through your team, as we've seen countless times when we've been playing it. But at the same time, it has so many weaknesses, and defensively it is pretty bad. So trying to cover those with 4 other Pokemon is an extremely difficult job, but not an impossible one. So 2 big areas that we identified last week on the episode Analyser were Sun. We played Lilligant Torkoal. We got through it, but that was luckily due to early wake-ups. If we hadn't got those first turn wake-ups on both Pokemon that we did, I don't think the match would have turned out the way it kind of ended up. So that was a big area that we needed to kind of look at. We've got no way really to stop Lilligant spamming sleep powders everywhere on the team. We've got a way to disrupt the Sun, but it's not a very reliable one. You don't really want to be switching Vanilluxe in on anything, even unboosted, that Torkoal is going to be throwing out, because it will be picking up KOs. So in that respect, it's not the strongest kind of matchup as well. Celesteela was another Pokemon that we kind of highlighted that we need to have better answers for, because at the moment in the team we've only got that Alolan Marowak really when you look at it, and it's not really great to just rely on one Pokemon. It puts a lot of pressure onto that one Pokemon, and that Pokemon in those kind of matches, they become very important. If you lose it, then you probably lose the match, and the win conditions for your opponent, they're easy to identify for your opponent to take down, deal with, and then that big Pokemon that is the threat that it's there to deal with comes in and just sweeps you away. So I think that was something we needed to look at. And also Arcanine as well. Arcanine's so prominent in this format. It was a big issue for Hail. It loves facing down against Hail. You know, we're not going to be throwing out big damage to KO it or anything like that. Doesn't even worry about freezes, because they normally always carry Flare Blitz, so it can thaw straight out. If that happens, we can't stop it in its tracks that way, and that's kind of preying towards more RNG than anything else. So Arcanine was something that we have a big problem with. We've not really got any good switches into those Flare Blitz. We've got Gyarados, I guess, but that switch is pretty easy to read from my opponent, especially if they've got an electric type partner sitting next to them. And even though we've got Marowak in the team, we can only bring 4 Pokemon at a time, so sometimes we can't bring that Marowak to games to support the Gyarados, and if we do, it means dropping something else. So I think on a whole, this team is, I love it. I think it's really solid, but it does have some big weaknesses, and we try to cover them, but maybe not as well as we could. So going into this week, let's hop over to our first game on Monday. So we changed up the team completely. We kept our Hail Core because that was the main kind of incentive of the team. But we threw out the Gyarados, the Alolan Marowak, Alolan Muck, and the Tapu Lele, and we replaced them with Mandibuzz, Arcanine, Xurkitree, and Tapu Fini. So Tapu Fini straight away gives us that misty terrain. It's a slower of the Tapus as well, so it means we can really get terrain control a lot better than something like Tapu Lele or Tapu Koko. And we're immune to the sleep powders that could potentially be thrown out from the likes of Lilligant. It's a nice switch into any fire type attacks as well, like Arcanine and Torkoal as well. And we decided to go with a Calm Mind variant so we can boost those defenses up and start throwing out some big attacks. We decided to keep our ground resistance in Mandibuzz. It also gives us an option of speed control in the team, something that we were missing with that Tailwind. We've got Foul Play, Taunt, and Roost on it at the moment with that Misty Seed to boost those special defenses. And I think in general that's quite a nice pairing for the Hail Core as well. And then we kind of automatically switch over to Arcanine. We've got a water type on our team, we don't want another one, so your first choice Intimidator is always probably going to be Arcanine. It fits in well with Tapu Fini as well. It's a nice switch in for grass type attacks, especially something like Kartana and Tapu Bulu, and you can threaten things as well, so like those types very well with Arcanine. And then we kind of rounded the team off with Xurkitree. So Xurkitree as well offers a nice kind of coverage against stuff like Celesteela, especially with Arcanine. And we're not relying so much on just one Pokemon to deal with that sort of big threat. So we go into that, and I like the look of the team. I think it kind of covers itself well enough, and it's got the potential to work well in the Hail Core, I feel. But we go into Monday, and this is the start. And I think the big thing here to kind of point out as well, when we ended up on Friday, I was on a massive high from the week. I thought the battles that we had, we'd lost a couple, but they were kind of easy, kind of explaining why we'd lost those. It wasn't too much down to the team. It was more to do with adjusting to the team, learning how it played and things like that. So I was feeling really good about the Hail Core, really enjoying it, and coming into Monday's episode, it was pretty difficult over the weekend, kind of making a decision on what we were going to change to kind of cover the big threats that we kind of covered in Friday's episode Analyser, but I feel like the answers that we've got here do that job quite nicely. So we come into our first game against this Arasho Mati Japanese lookalike team that we know quite commonly from how well it's done in tournaments past this season. So we've got the Tapu Koko, the Garchomp, Arcanine, Tapu Fini, Whimsicott and Celesteela here. So Hail Core is not bad here. The Whimsicott doesn't like it. Tapu Koko is not massively keen on it. Garchomp doesn't want to face down against that anytime soon. And we've got the Freeze Dry on the Vanilluxe that can really handle Tapu Fini quite nicely as well. Two big threats though are the Arcanine and the Celesteela, and we should have really identified this more. Because we got into this match and we see my opponent. Let's see if I can just pull this up. So this is the second turn. We lead off with our Hail Core. So we've got our Hail Core, which I think at the time I even said after the game, we're forcing it a bit too much. The team is centered around this Hail Core, but we don't always have to lead with it. It's not something we need to do. And I think when looking back at the team preview, I think leading off with Mandibuzz and Tapu Fini would have been the best kind of method all round, because we had access to Tailwind with Mandibuzz, we had access to Taunt to shut down the Celesteela's Leech Seeds and things like that, and then once we got a Tailwind up, we can start to threaten things like the Arcanine, and if that Garchomp decides to come in, we can start threatening it like that way. Mandibuzz as well also doesn't really care about Whimsicott, because of the Prankster ability being a dark type. It's immune to those Prankster attacks, so it does pretty well in this match in general, and I think that would have probably been the better lead here. But we decided not to, and straight away we're in a bad position, so we need to adjust our board position. Celesteela and Arcanine facing down against our Hail Core, both threatening big KOs, so we did need to adjust here, and we do so. We switch out our Vanilluxe into the Arcanine, and then from that point we protect our Sandslash, and we're in a bit of a better position. Oh, why have I not muted this? So we'll mute that while we go forward. So that's what we do, and we kind of change our board position around a bit, and we end up with Arcanine and Finny out against the Celesteela, and the Arcanine, we discover that the Arcanine is a choice band set, so it's locked into Flare Blitz. It's not really threatening anything at the moment, and then we start forcing my opponents to have to make plays and switch their board position up, etc, etc. So it's looking alright at this point, but the match, I feel, comes down to one big play, and I'm gonna just whiz forward a minute because I think we could have won this match, but if it were not for, so I think at this point we've got our Arcanine and our Tapu Fini out, and we know the opposing Arcanine is locked into Wild Charge, or it has to go for Wild Charge. It's already used it, and we've got the Tapu Fini next to it just come in. So I think we know the Hail is going to end this next turn. What we really should have done here, what we end up doing, is switching the Arcanine and the Tapu Fini out for Alolan Sandslash and Vanilluxe. What we should have done at this point was we should have protected the Arcanine on our end. We didn't even need to protect, really. The Tapu Fini at this point hadn't Calm Minded, so we could have even went for a Snarl here and just switched in the Sandslash, keeping the Vanilluxe in the back. And that would have meant that when we brought the Vanilluxe in the following turn, we would have had 5 more turns of Hail. We would have been able to maybe get an Aurora Veil up, and I think that would have probably been enough at this point to close the match out for us with the resources that we had. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. We gave the Tapu Fini a free Calm Mind boost. The Arcanine's sitting in there, but we kind of know it has to switch out this next turn, and we've not really got too much to threaten this Tapu Fini with now, because our Hail has just ended. Our Blizzards aren't going to be as accurate as they would have been previously, and I think it's just put us into a really bad position. So I'm going to put that down. My opponent from this point is able to switch out the Arcanine, get his board position back with it, and close the game out, and end up taking the game with his Tapu Fini and Celesteela, which is a bit unfortunate for us. So we do end up losing that game. So not the best start for us at all, and I think that was totally avoidable. I think we could have easily overcome that match. It wouldn't have been straightforward, but I think that play where we just switched in a Hail on the Hail ending put us at such a big disadvantage at that point. It took all our momentum away, and getting any momentum back from that point after the Fini had Calm Minded, and then for the Arcanine to come back in was just kind of it wasn't going to happen, was it? So not the best start, but again, that was more down to how we played it, and we need to take more note of our Hail turns and how we're kind of maneuvering our board position around at certain times, and it's so key in games like that, and I think that was a big area for it, so something to take forward. So regardless of that, we go into our next game. I think we can't find an opponent, so let's just whiz forward, and there we go. We bump into Jack, who turns out to be Jack the Battler, who has a great YouTube channel. So if you guys ever want to check him out, do go over to his YouTube channel. He does a lot of stuff on Showdown, but I believe he has just moved over to doing Battle Spot doubles. Not Battle Spot doubles, but Battle Spot games as well. So he's got a team consisting of Tapu Koko, Mimikyu, Salamence, Mudsdale, Whimsicott, and Politoed. So he's got that opposing weather there that can disrupt our Hail mode. He's potentially got a Trick Room mode with the Mimikyu, and the Mudsdale there being probably a Trick Room abuser. And like I said in the team preview here, I don't think that is an Assault Vest Salamence. I think from the build of the team it looks more like an offensive Fly Dragon Dance variant. So, but whether he wants to bring it here or not because of the Hail mode is another question. So let's whiz into this first game. So we see us lead off with our Alolan Sandslash and our Tapu Fini. We do manage to get the terrain control here because our Fini is going to be slower than that Tapu Koko, and in this position we make a huge error straight away. So we decide that because the protect from the Finny, I feel, is quite obvious in this position, we decide not to protect the Finny and go for a cheeky Calm Mind. Or I think maybe even a Muddy Water and then an Iron Head into the Mimikyu, which turns out to be the wrong thing. And I want to raise a big important point here. Even if you think, I think in a best of one situation, which the battle spot is, unfortunately, at the moment, I think you don't need to take players will not take big risks early on in games and make reads early on, and I do this far too much, I think, and this is like coming from me. I think I read into things too much. In my opinion here, I think, well, the Finny is threatened, so if I'm my opponent, say, Finny is so threatened here because the Tapu Koko could have the Gigavolt Havoc, which could pick up the KO, or it could just throw a Volt Switch into it and do some good damage. So my thinking would be, let's not attack into the Finny because the Protect's so obvious. So that makes me think, right, he's probably not going to attack into it because he thinks, yeah, the Protect is coming out there, I'm just going to waste a turn if I do attack into it and give that Sandslash some room to set up, do whatever. So that's why I feel this position, it is a bit of a risk, and we do get punished for it. But this is why I'm saying, if we just protected Finny this first turn, I think the game would have turned out a lot better, because we lose the Finny, unfortunately, here. We decide to get greedy. We don't play cautiously at all here. There is every threat of getting doubled into, because both Pokemon on my opponent's side of the field are going to be faster than the Tapu Finny. So in this situation, what we really need to be doing is protecting the Finny and bringing in something next to it that can, you know, help it out, support it a bit more against these threats. And I don't feel like we've really got too much in the team that can do that at the minute, and that's a big highlighted area, I think, going forward with this team. So as we're going to see, we'll click in our moves, and the Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch and the Mimikyu goes for a Twinkle Tackle, which turns out to be enough to take down this Finny straight away, making sure that he removes it from the field. Koko switches out, Volt Switch. What comes in for it? Let's see, Tapu Koko, Mudsdale, yeah. So the Mudsdale comes in, there's the Twinkle Tackle, removes Finny from the field, and from this point, it's really difficult for us to do anything. We get a Vanilluxe in, get the Hail up, but it's easy for my opponent just to switch the Politoed in. At this point, we've got nothing to really switch in, like that Tapu Finny for the water type attacks on the Politoed, and from here it's just really all downhill. So not a great start to the episode on Monday, and I think that first turn, it's really hard to distinguish how the match would have turned out after that, but I think we had the resources to at least give a better performance here rather than just trying to kind of eke our way back into the match when it was nearly impossible. So that was Monday's episode. It wasn't the best, but we said Monday, let's just write that off down to just some bad decisions, in which they were, and let's approach things on Tuesday. So we keep the same team, try again on Tuesday, because it's never good. I think one big point I will make as well, if you're testing out new ideas on a team, you've got to give it time. I think you've got to give it time for you to adjust to it, and you've got to get time to get comfortable with it and how it's meant to operate. It's all well and good building a team in your head on paper, but it can play completely different when you're actually in a match and you're against an opponent that's switching and doing things that you might not have quantified when you're actually making the team and how it's meant to operate. So there will be that little kind of teething phase of that. So you've got to give the team a little bit of a chance to kind of do its thing, and for you to learn how to do that thing as well. So we're not going to give up on it just yet, and that's something I will always say. Give a team a chance. If you've put a lot of time into building the team, you need to give it a chance to begin with. And once, you know, if it's not working after like 10 games still, and you're not feeling it, then yeah, fair enough, move on. But I think after 2 games, I don't think that's really a fair judgment on a team, and that's something I would always stick by. I would always try and give a team a good run before, like 10-15 games. You're going to know by that point, you're going to run into enough variation of opponents to know if the team's working on it, or if there's big holes in it that you need to kind of adjust to. So we come in on Tuesday, we're like, right, let's try this again. Let's try it again. So we come up against our first opponent on Tuesday, and they're running a double Tapu team again. Tapu Lele, Tapu Fini. We've got Arcanine, Garchomp, Mandibuzz, and Pheromosa here. So our Hill mode looks really good here. We've only got an Arcanine that really puts on a lot of pressure. Pheromosa there does put a bit of pressure onto our Ice Pokemon, but you know, Vanilluxe will outspeed it and potentially can pick up a KO up onto it before it can get a move off. We do need to be a bit careful with the Arcanine, and you can probably expect the Arcanine to lead here. So let's go into it and see what happens. So we lead off, not with our Hail mode. Keeping in mind what happened yesterday. Keeping in mind that we were forcing the Hail mode a little bit too much, and with the presence of Arcanine in my opponent's team, it was likely that they were going to lead it. It's a pretty easy lead in for us. We don't have any ground type Pokemon on our team, so there's not really too much threatening in it other than Tapu Fini. So we decide to lead that and Mandibuzz, and we go into it. And I think the lead we've got here isn't too bad at all. So need to mute this again because the sound will bleed over otherwise. We see that both my opponent's Pokemon are faster than both of our Pokemon at this point. So the Mandibuzz could shut us down with a Taunt, stop our Mandibuzz going for a Tailwind, or could just allow us to go for a Tailwind and then start operating from there. What ends up happening, we both go for Tailwinds, I think, and we see a Fiery MZ come out from the Arcanine into the Mandibuzz, trying to get some big damage onto it early on. And that's a really good play from my opponent, because they kind of know that we'll probably go for a Tailwind, but as long as they go for the Tailwind, you know, the next turn they can fire off another attack into that Mandibuzz and potentially pick up a KO before it gets a Roost off. So making very good use of that Z move there. We see Tailwinds coming out from both Mandibuzz and my Mandibuzz, and we go for a Calm Mind with our Tapu Fini. Now, you'd say here, right, I'm just going to say here, after we've got the Calm Mind, we're putting a lot of pressure onto the Arcanine. We've got the Moonblast for the Mandibuzz as well, and we also match the Tailwind, so we're sitting in not a bad position at all. Now, the big thing here is the opposing Mandibuzz outspeeds our Tapu Fini, and we know this. But we don't know it's got access to Snarl, and Snarl is kind of the crux of this match for us. So we see a Wild Charge come out from the Arcanine, is going to be able to pick up that Mandibuzz. Like we were saying, it's a good use of that Z move, getting rid of a big threat, and kind of ignoring the special defensive boosts here from that side of the field. And there's that Snarl, and taking away our Calm Mind boost, kind of wasting our first turn. We've got the special defense, but at this point it's not really doing much. We want to be hitting as hard as we can to put a lot of pressure on both of these Pokemon, and the Muddy Water damage is alright. It's decent onto the Arcanine, but it's doing nothing to that Mandibuzz. So knowing that it's going to be faster than us as well going into the following turn, it's not going to be doing the job, and from there things kind of go a little bit downhill for us. We end up bringing in our Hail Core to reset the Calm Mind on everything, but we haven't really got any way to deal with. Do we deal with the Arcanine? We do deal with the Arcanine, and manage to deal with the Mandibuzz as well. But at this point of the game, I think we've lost so much resource that it's really difficult for us to kind of come back from. Garchomp and Tapu Fini coming in next. Garchomp revealing the Swords Dance on a turn it could, because we were threatened so heavily by maybe Tech Rage, or actually the Protect on the Garchomp. I think that's the thing. But regardless of that, we lose that match, and I think it was all down to the build of our team. The Snarl was pretty unfortunate, but yeah, that wasn't a great match. We'll go on to our next game. I don't think we need to cover every game, but I want to cover these couple of games here, and I think this one is in particular quite important for us, because we go up against Tapu Koko Raichu. There's no Trick Room switch here for my opponent. They've got Rain though with Golduck and Araquanid and Tapu Lele, so they've got two things on their team here that are very threatening for our core. We've got the Tapu Koko double electric core with the Raichu there. We've got no immunities. We've got Xurkitree, but I mean, Xurkitree's still going to be taking damage from a lot of things, and especially if that Rain mode comes in, it disrupts our Hail mode. it's just a very difficult match in general, and we don't really want to be bringing Arcanine to this match, even though Intimidate would be really good against that one thing Araquanid. But it's all about managing our terrain, so the terrain stays in our kind of control, and our weather as well. And we just weren't able to do that because of just how much pressure Tapu Koko and the Raichu put onto our side of the field. And I think just really highlighting here, we have no answer to Tapu Koko, and it can do what it really likes because there's not really too much threat for it. It can just Volt Switch in and out of everything. We've got no way to stop that. And no massive offense to kind of deal with it, and I think that was the key in this match to showing the issues there surrounding the Tapu Koko weakness in particular. So this is what we kind of came up with anyway at the end of this match, because obviously you guys were amazing with comments and feedback, and this was highlighted. So after Tuesday's episode, I was feeling completely bummed out. I was feeling like terrible about how the team was going, especially I think it made it worse with how well we did the previous week with the core, and I was just trying all sorts of different ideas to bring into the team, and I really didn't know where to go with it, and I just thought, what are we going to do here? And it wasn't really until I started reading comments and feedback from you guys, and I got way more. I kind of come out of this slump that I was in, and I stopped feeling sorry for myself and thought, yeah, there's answers here, and we just need to look at the team and look at how we can approach these games and play it. And I think a big thing with the team was, a big issue with the team was, we were trying to cover issues that we kind of identified from that first build, like the Lilligant, the Torkoal, the Celesteela, and the Arcanine. And we just threw Pokemon in there. And like I said on Wednesday's episode when we made changes, we'd thrown those Pokemon in there without actually building them into a Hail Core. And I think this is a big principle, a big lesson to take away from this. I think whenever you're building a team, the team needs to suit each other. The Pokemon within the team all need to kind of synergize with each other and work with each other very well. And I think because we just pulled a Tapu Fini from a team that we'd used in the past, threw it on here. Same with Mandibuzz, same with Arcanine, same with Xurkitree. We pulled them from all past teams and just shoved them on and thought, right, well, they're EV'd, they're alright. They work in other teams well, they'll work in this one. And it's not the case. It really isn't the case. And I think it really showed in Monday and Tuesday's episode, because we weren't comfortable with the team. We didn't have, in our minds, we didn't have how we set up against certain threats, certain like team archetypes and stuff like that. And I think when you're building yourself from the ground up, you understand a lot better how the team is meant to match up against opposing threats and things like that. So that's a big important thing, and we hadn't done that at all. And the Pokemon that we had in there were support Pokemon that could have been offensive, should have been offensive. The speed tiers were all over the place, and nothing really synced up well. So after reading comments and things like that, as I say, I got out of this slump, and I thought I'll sit down, and I've actually still got it. So I sat down on Wednesday, and I looked at the team. I looked at the Pokemon that we had, and I thought they all make sense on paper. Just basically going down to their types, their abilities, and things like that. They all make sense. They all kind of cover what we need to kind of combat against with the Hail Core. So I thought, right, let's start over. Let's keep the same 6 Pokemon and build up from the ground up. And this is literally what I did. I've got damage calculations, I've got EV spreads and everything, and I sat for a good probably hour and a half, 2 hours building the team and making sure I went over it. And after that, I felt so comfortable without even playing a game, thinking this is so much better than what it would have been on Monday, because I knew exactly the answers for exactly the threats that we were going up against, and I knew what we needed to do in those certain situations. I knew the damage calcs, I knew that we'd be able to get Tailwind off. We ran that faster Mandibuzz, so it guaranteed things for us. It made it easier to play the team, and that's what you want in your mind. You want that peace of mind to be able to know that, you know, if you're facing down against something, I know I'm faster than it. And that's without any indications. I know I'm faster than that Pokemon. I know its speed tier. I'm definitely faster than it. I will get this Tailwind off. I can get this Calm Mind off. I can get this Flare Blitz off. I know this Flare Blitz is going to KO. So we made some big changes. We put like Zap Play on Xurkitree because we were lacking a life orb that was originally on there that I put on Arcanine, so it meant that we were hitting so much harder. We've got Wild Charge on it, we've got Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, making sure that we can pick up KOs on things like Celesteela unexpectedly. That is a huge threat to the team. We've sped it up as well, so to make sure that we are outspeeding some other threats that maybe would outspeed us otherwise and pick up a KO. We can KO Lele with Unintimidated now. We can KO Koko Unintimidated now. And then the Zap play on the Xurkitree, we give it Hidden Power Ground. It gives us nice coverage against stuff like Alolan Marowak, Magnezone that could be an issue, a Poison Tap of Kolkos even, and we give it Energy Ball as well. And this all kind of centers around as well what we give the Mandibuzz. So we give the Mandibuzz Fake Tears, a really great idea that we had from one of you guys, and we played into that concept because the Vanilluxe can take advantage of it, the Tapu Fini can, the Xurkitree can, and then we've got our 2 physical type attackers. And I speed tiered everything so it would all kind of sync up well with the Mandibuzz. So the Mandibuzz's speed stat was 140. Then the Xurkitree was the next fastest thing on 139. And then we had the Arcanine on 138. So very similar. And because we've got the Arcanine in there, and we've got the Mandibuzz with the Misty Seed, we can judge by indication of when these go off compared to our opponent's abilities going off speed tiers before a turn even begins, which makes it a lot easier straight away. So just knowing where your Pokemon sit within each other's speed tiers helps automatically. But this doesn't really matter too much, because the basic point that I'm trying to get across is that the more comfortable you are with the build, the easier it will become. And I think it really showed in Wednesday's episode. So let's just whiz forward to our first opponent. And we bump into a Rain team. So very much like Thomas Platter's Liverpool regional winning team. I haven't even paused it there. So we can see the Tapu Koko, Pelipper Golduck, Metagross, Buzzwole, and Garchomp. So we don't decide again. We're not rushing in with a Hail mode, because we know if we go with a Hail mode, then it's an easy switch in for the Pelipper to disrupt our Hail. So we want to try and keep our Vanilluxe in the back for as long as possible, to wait for that Pelipper to come in, and then we can make our move, bring our Vanilluxe in at that point and disrupt their weather. So you're not doing it vice versa, and you're not on the back foot. You're keeping your momentum, and you're putting more pressure on them to adjust the next turn. And that's what you're always wanting to try and do, and trying to capitalize your positioning that way. So we see my opponent lead off with the Metagross and the Buzzwole. We lead off with our Mandibuzz and our Tapu Fini. And you know, first turn I kind of expect a Bulldoze maybe, and then a Meteor Mash into our Tapu Fini from that weakness policy boosted Metagross. So I decide to go for a Tailwind with the Mandibuzz, and I decide to go for, I'm pretty sure, just protect Fini this first turn to avoid any damage, and I think it pays off, because yeah, we do. We see the Buzzwole and the Metagross actually just double into the Fini slot with Poison Jab and Meteor Mash, giving us that free Tailwind. So the next turn we're going into a much better position there. I think really kind of coming down to more than anything just showing our comfortability with the team in this turn, and we're actually approaching it a lot smarter in this position. The next turn is pretty big, because we are able to get a Fake Tears off onto the Buzzwole. We are in a Tailwind now. We definitely know our outspeed and everything, and we get a Moonblast into that Buzzwole and pick up the KO, which is a big KO. We see a Meteor Mash into the Metagross, and from there we do see the Pelipper come in. So like I was saying earlier on in the match, we wanted to wait before we brought our Vanilluxe in. We need to wait for the Pelipper to come in to disrupt that Rain. But at the same time, we've got to be aware that there is a Metagross on the field. But we do have access to Foul Play. Thing is, it's probably got a weakness policy, so we don't want to just launch into it just yet with a Foul Play to activate that, to boost that Meteor Mash that could potentially come out. So we want to bide our time a bit and maybe target into the Pelipper, because we know it wants to probably go for a Tailwind. If we can shut it down with a Taunt, and it's going to kind of take that out of the equation for my opponent and further force them to kind of adjust their position, possibly the next turn. And as long as our Muddy Water here hits, we're putting Metagross into range for another Muddy Water and potentially a Foul Play the following turn, so which is quite nice. And we do that, and I think from there it's pretty nice. We still have the Garchomp to come in, we get a Hail in, but at this point we can kind of close up the match. We kind of close out with Vanilluxe against that Garchomp, which is pretty alright, to be honest. So back on track, and then we go into our next game, and I think it really kind of, more than anything, probably showed the confidence that I had more in the team of how it was meant to operate and how it was kind of meant to be played against certain threats in that game, because of just the knowledge that I had of the team, and it wasn't just thrown together randomly. Another change that we made that I have missed is that we put the Tectonic Rage on Alolan Sandslash. So we've got the Ground EMZ on that, and that gives us a really solid option against Tapu Koko to remove it from the field. Even Intimidated, I think we've got a good chance to pick up, I think it's a roll, to pick up a KO on Tapu Koko. So it's a good option. It also gives us a nice option against Muck and opposing Arcanines if they're chipped as well. So that's good knowledge. We go into this next match. It's a similar match that we played earlier on in the week on Monday, and we come out on a way better side of that. I don't think we need to really go into that. Then we go into Friday's episode again to round the week off, and we play against this crazy Mischievous team, which we managed to kind of overcome. But highlight there just the importance of taunt and identifying, like, the as we see here, you know, when you face down against something like, it's the same kind of situation as when you would face down against a Porygon 2. We know Pokemon with the Eviolite potentially, like Mischievous and Porygon 2, they can't hold a mental herb, so they're just taunt bait all day long. So you can quite happily taunt into them, and I think we managed the field in this match pretty well. And then we go into our penultimate game of the week with this new build, and we face down against a Tapu Koko, Kartana, Tapu Lele, Arcanine, Porygon 2 and Gigalith. So we come up against a Sandstorm team, which isn't something that Vanilluxe and Sandslash kind of really like to see because of the Trick Room switch there as well. If that Trick Room goes up and the Gigalith is able to come in and take advantage of that, then we're in a lot of trouble. So we need to make sure that we utilise our Mandibuzz well enough here, and to shut it down if it does come in. We lead off with our Mandibuzz Tapu Fini, and I think we neglect to ignore one possible area here. And I think another thing is kind of highlights the need for maybe Roost on the Mandibuzz, and we definitely missed it here, because this first turn we go for the Tailwind, we do get it off. We do see that we're faster than both targets as well with both of our Pokemon, which is quite big, because we could have went for a Fake Tears maybe into the Arcanine and a Muddy Water to potentially try and take it down. But I think the Tailwind at this point was quite important to get up, and then we go for a Calm Mind as well. Now we see a Helping Hand Moonblast come out from the Tapu Lele that does huge damage, and I'll just skip forward a little bit. We do get our Tailwind up, but the problem is, because we've done no damage this turn, so maybe Muddy Watering here would have been the better play. I would have definitely put that Arcanine into range the following turn, but we do see a Helping Hand Moonblast come out, and it does massive damage to our Mandibuzz. We just about actually we don't take it, so excuse me, because this is the first time watching this back after we've played it. So we don't take it, we lose Mandibuzz straight away. And this is the other thing, so we're running a very fast Mandibuzz. We haven't got as much bulk in as we normally had, and I think depending on the item of that Tapu Lele, it could have been a KO regardless of how much bulk we had in that slot. Now all we've got in the back at this point is our Vanilluxe and our Sandslash. No, we've got our Vanilluxe and our Arcanine. So we bring in Vanilluxe because we are threatening with a +1 Muddy Water, and we've got Blizzard as well that we can fire out. And we kind of end up timing out on this turn. And I think one thing that was the big error here was we should have switched out our Vanilluxe into our Arcanine here and went for that Muddy Water. For one reason is because I think that Tapu Lele is choice specs, and the other reason is Arcanine could come in and take that Moonblast pretty comfortably, and we get an Intimidate off onto the Arcanine whilst doing big damage, and we still got the Vanilluxe in the back to bring in later on to utilise a bit better. And I think this is the big problem here, because we just go for the turns we go for. The Blizzard and the Muddy Water, yeah, so we time out on our Finny. Protect. We needed to Muddy Water there. We're in Tailwind. There was no reason not to. If we Muddy Watered and we went for the Blizzard here, it would have been enough to take down this Lele. We wouldn't have lost our Vanilluxe this turn, which turned out to be the kind of the crux of the match. So I don't think it's too much to do with the team here. I think it's just to do with we couldn't make our minds up quick enough in the time that we had to lock in a move, and we got punished for it big time. I mean, we got the match right down to, as we see, Kartana, full health against our half health Arcanine, Tapu Fini. And I think the turn that we really made a mistake here was if we go back one turn or two turns. So here, we protect on the Kartana protecting, expecting the Kartana to try and go for the KO onto the Arcanine here. So we protect on that. But what we should have really done, it's all 50-50s at this point, what we really should have done was not protect with Arcanine, attack into the Kartana. If it takes us down, it takes us down, the game's over there and then. But it means if we did make that play, we had the option to protect this turn with the Arcanine. And like I say, it's 50-50s at this point, so it's still really difficult. And I think better than anything at this point, we should have just extreme speeded with our Arcanine and went for the Muddy Water. Because the Kartana is always going to target into the Arcanine over the Tapu Fini. It's not really threatened from the Tapu Fini at this point. So I think extreme speed and just getting that little bit of additional damage off, and it might have been enough to actually pick up a KO here, you never know, but I think it was really difficult, and coming down to 50-50s right at the end was just a bit unfortunate. But I think the big message here is just when a team isn't working out, and it kind of makes sense with the Pokemon that you've got kind of putting it together, it's good sometimes to just maybe take a step back and have a look at how you've built the team and how comfortable you are with the build, and do you know the basic premise of what the functions are with the team against opposing threats. And if you do, then maybe there is holes in the team, and that's maybe when you think, I need to adjust something, I need to take something out, I need to put something in to cover that. But at the same time, it might just be a case of let's relook at EV and things, and I think it did us the world of good midweek, and it kind of pulled the week back for myself because I felt like the week hasn't been great. It hasn't been one of the best on the channel by a long way, but I feel like we did kind of rescue it by making the changes and you know, not giving up on the team, and I think that's a big thing to take forward. There's areas of the team as well, and the games that we played, and I think it's more down to my mentality of decision making in places, and I will admit to you all now that I'm not in a brilliant place at the minute with playing. I'm not feeling massively confident in my play. It probably came across on the stream last night, and it's definitely coming across in some of my play, so it's something that I need to just have a look at myself personally and reevaluate things over the weekend and come back a little bit stronger on Monday. So yes, but we all go through patches like this, and it's all about how we come out on the other side and move forward, because that's all we can do, and improve and try and improve and things like that. And it's got seriously dark in this room all of a sudden. The sun is going down, and it is, I'm sure is it Halloween tonight or tomorrow night? I don't know, but happy Halloween for whenever it is, guys. And we're going to wrap things up there. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode Analyzer. It's been a bit more in depth, and as I say, we're still in the baby steps of trying to get there, but we will get there eventually, and when we do, it will be a really good tool for us to take forward and look at how to improve and look back on mistakes that we've made so we don't make them going forward in future and things like that. So that's the main premise of it. But thanks so much for watching, guys, and let me know your suggestions and your thoughts on the episode in general. It would be great to hear what you thought of today's episode, being the second one in this little mini series and all. And I'll let you go and enjoy your weekends. So have an amazing time whatever you're doing. I am attending an MSS tomorrow in London and Orpington, so looking forward to that. If you guys are around for that, come and say hi. And if you're not, I'll let you know how I get on Monday. Hopefully I come back and I'm happy and go into that tournament with a better head on my shoulders than I have been going into these episodes this week. But I'm sure I will. I'm sure it'll be fine, and I just look forward to playing in a competitive environment again. So it'll be good. It'll be good. And I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. So whatever you're doing, make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Also, leave a like on the video if you have enjoyed it, of course. It is massively helpful. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe. We have tons and tons and tons of VGC content, and we are going to be growing and growing and growing as we go on. So I'm going to wrap things up there, guys. Not go on any longer. Go away, enjoy your weekends, have a great Friday night, great weekend, and I will see you all again on Monday for another episode of our School of Hard Knocks. So thank you so much, guys. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, bye bye.